Hey guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? It's raining. Though there are a lot of storms going on in a large portion of Nebraska and Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma. Please be safe. The hail is insane. Been watching my favorite channel, Ryan Hall, y'all. I'm a weather weenie. I actually used to do weather warrior reports every morning to tell everybody before they woke up what I was experiencing, because I was up before a lot of other people. I don't do that anymore. Today, the key of destiny. We're going to continue on our journey with the 12th number. And today, this is why I get all confused. We're going to do lambd, if I'm saying that properly. And once again, I didn't complete Hebrew school. Didn't resonate with me. But I butcher Hebrew. So, mind ya. Before I start, please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I had to take yesterday off. A lot of downloads. A lot of meditation had to happen. Had to do a lot of saging. And I didn't sleep the night before at all. So I was really out of it. And then today, I did a friend a favor, and then I had a doctor's appointment because I'm losing my insurance very soon. And I just need to make sure that everything is working, which I do know it is. But yeah. So if you have ever gotten a light bulb moment, an epiphany, a new book to read or buy or purchase, please consider supporting my channel. I read a varied amount of work on this channel. And again, a lot of it I had to revamp because copyrights and you can't quote and do certain things. I get it. Though knowledge should be free. And certain things shouldn't hold, like channelings should be open source. Because they're not directly, they're being sourced from above. I would hope, maybe. But anywho, in order for me to keep doing this for right now, I have a lot of cleaning out of my house to do. It's very overwhelming. It's like ADHD on steroids. I don't want to necessarily, I have to do it, but it's just me. So any kind of help you can give me is better than no help. And even if that's a like, I appreciate it. And there's a lot of gratitude there and a lot of appreciation for that. So please consider doing that. I live in a communistic state. And I refuse to bow down to things that are not in the Constitution and that already has affected my health. I am allergic. So there's a lot of restrictions on people like me. It's unfair. So the 12th letter, lambd. I'm going to have to reposition this. Quote, "Oh, sing unto the Lord a new song, for he hath done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm hath gotten him the victory." Psalms. Quote, "As I live, saith the Lord, surely with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm And with fury poured out will I rule over you, and I will bring you out from the people with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm, with fury poured out, end quote. Ezekiel. Quote, he produced Lamb, predominant in sexual desire, crowned it, combined and formed with it Libra in the universe, Teshri in the year, and the private parts of man, end quote. Sefer Yitzraya. I just read that on my channel. So if you're looking for, and that's the reason why I read it, this book has quoted, and the Keys of the Universe, the prior book to this, quotes Sefer Yitzraya a lot. A lot. And my co-host is here. So I read it. Interesting read. Check it out. Hieroglyphically, the 12th letter, Lamb, designates the outstretched arm of a man, or anything that can be stretched out and made rigid to exert strength and to accomplish some definite work. The strength manifested in the 11th letter, or hand that grasps, must ever depend upon the arm that stretches out the hand, or the power that gives strength to the hand, also the invisible force or life back of that strength. Therefore, the 12th letter expresses power of the exertion of strength and of the expansion caused by a definite inflow of life force necessary to accomplish an object. While the strong hand can grasp either good or evil, can be clenched to save or to punish, the arm must be extended and the life force expanded, its muscles as it is elevated for either purpose, good or evil. The letter Lamb corresponds with the zodiacal sign Libra, the balance. For only as we have learned to balance our life forces and not permit them to sweep us off our feet, can we use them for good and determinately stretch out the arm to grasp that which shall bring us victory over our lower animal nature. Again, it is the arm of the divine law karma, stretched out to hold the scales of justice so that they shall swing free. The slightest breath of the spirit of life may sway them, least like See, I can't project this word. Belazar. Not the name, but is as close as it's going to come out of my mouth without my teeth flying at the computer. The strong hand shall write for us on the wall of our temple, physical body. Quote, thou art weighed in the balances and found wanting, end quote. It takes little thought to see why the ancient sages said this letter was predominant in sexual desire, for it is not this force, one of the strongest factors affecting the balance of life. Hence, this letter primarily symbolizes the equilibrium that must be obtained through balancing the sex forces and the expansion of strength needed to accomplish this end. The main lesson of this planet. I love this sentence already. It just started. The main lesson of this planet is that the perfect balance of all that is expressed through sex must be gained we can obtain equilibrium or the victory which the great law will bring to us. Ta-da! Amazing. Amazing. But we must ourselves reach for it with the holy arm or the positive power to accomplish and not negatively pray to some outside power to relieve us from its tests and responsibilities, it is balanced. Only then can we sing the new song. We need never expect to do away with sexual desire until we have gained the victory over it and used it for its highest ends according to the mandate of the divine law. So long as we adhere to the opinion that it is vile, unclean, and given to men by a capricious God as a stumbling block to test man's endurance and help him to create and people a hell for his own sufferings, so long must we suffer from it. To avoid this, we must first balance our minds, set one thing against another, and ask why a God of love should place man in the midst of his garden of life and say to him as a part of his blessing, quote, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, end quote. If it was not in very truth the great lesson whose solution would bring about the victory here outlined. In other words, to balance, it must see God's end of the scales and not fix our minds solely on man's end and say that it brings so much sin and misery that we will cut off this end, hoping thereby to obtain a balance. If we do this, the great hand of karma will still hold out the unbalanced scales, and the fury resulting from man's own acts, with which he has filled and unbalanced the scales, will be poured out upon him. If an electric wire be carefully connected, it brings even a high current of electricity safely to the lamp at the other end and sheds its blessing of light and warmth around. But if the wire be broken, so it hangs down and touches the earth, it flashes and sputters and spins desolation and death. So it is with the scales of which we are speaking. Indeed, to cut off man's end is even worse for humanity than to make a mistake use of it. There is a difference between balance and equilibrium. A balance has two opposite ends, which must be poised and equal to each other. Equilibrium is the balance produced by the counteraction of two or more forces. Equilibrium being the central point in this case, where the one life is ever manifesting through the two, God's end and man's end. Thus, the letter lambda is associated with sexual desire because the one life, which manifests through man, is the force back of all evolution, and without this pushing force, neither the stretched out arm nor the strong virile hand would be effective. Nor in nature could a seed grow, a plant produce, nor a blade of grass push through the sod. Therefore, the preeminent significance expressed by lambda is the power of the life force to produce manifestation. Another meaning of the lambda is that of an ox goad. Very little thought is needed to correlate this meaning with the one given above, for it is the creative power of the one life that ever goads on our ox-like physical consciousness. Also in the ox goad, the idea of something with which to beat or chastise the ox is expressed, and the ox symbol of our animal nature needs this to compel it to complete its labor or to use the abundance of its life force and energy in creative and useful work for men. Indeed, in England, the word lamb is still used to signify a severe beating. Our slang term, I am blasting, having the same meaning. Also, just as the stretched out arm enables a hand to accomplish, so too the ox goad compels the ox to exert his strength to the utmost accomplish his task. The next tarot card, the Hanged Man. What's going on with his head? We'll read about it. This is from the Modern Rider-Waite. The 12th card on the tarot is called the Hanged Man. On it is pictured a giblet composed of two uprights and a cross piece. The two uprights are growing trees, from each of which 6 branches have been cut. These 6 lopped off branches on either side have the same symbology as the 12 signs of the zodiac. From the cross piece, a man is hanging by his left foot. His hands are tied behind his back, and under each armpit is a bag of money. And this is now describing the old version of this card, as we don't have that. So I don't want you guys getting confused. His eyes are open and his hair floats downward in the wind. His back and the fold of his arms form the base of a reverse triangle, of which his head forms the point. His right leg is crossed behind his left, forming a cross. The symbol thus formed is the sign of personality, which in alchemy, it is the sign of the accomplishment of the great work. The great work of man is to overcome personality and transmute his lower passions into pure gold and become the ruler of his destiny. Yet at the 12th step, we find him reversed, although ultimately he must stand upon his feet and surmount the cross. Here we see the idea of pushing force of the one life carried into higher metaphysics. This card expresses the idea of punishment, that the great law may accomplish its fullness. For man must hang upside down with his feet where his head should be until he accomplishes the great work of the regeneration within himself. And he can never stand in its midst and rule and dominate the zodiac while he hangs by one foot, weighted down by bags of money under his arms, which should be free to stretch out in blessings over mankind and to accomplish through the strength of his hands. His head pointing downward and the money bags under his arms symbolize that man has used his highest powers, his head, on earth to turn all things into money or physical gold, which then, when thus gained, only weighs him down and makes his accomplishment in the higher realms more difficult. Quote, I am the Lord, law, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm, end quote. Again, remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and a stretched out arm. It is only the power of the one life, sorry guys, cat hair, controlled by the determined will, symbolized by the mighty hand of, what goes on? All right, I'm just going to read off. I can't find my place. It is only the power of the one life controlled by the determined will, symbolized by the mighty hand and stretched out arm, that can bring man out of the land of bondage, Egypt, make him stand upright upon his feet, understanding, and enable him to rule his stars. Therefore, this 12th card carries with it the idea of the revealed law of karma. It shows that only as man feels the fury poured out and learns the lessons from the suffering entailed by permitting sex desire to rule during the elevation of the personality can he accomplish his great work of transmutation. The Greeks related number 12 to the myth of Prometheus, who stole the sacred fire from the sun. Again, the zodiac which receives and transmits the sun force, sacred fire. Like Prometheus, man today is indeed chained to the rock of physical existence, where the vulture, sex desire, feeds upon his liver, seat of passional desires, which grows again continually as soon as consumed. This condition will continue until he has gained the wisdom of the zodiac and has balanced the force of desire and transmuted it into spiritual love. This myth, therefore, has the same meaning as the 12th card. The hanged man here pictured is expecting the thief of the fruit of the tree of life, divine creative fire, a gift indeed to man, yet one because of which he has been chained to the rock of personality with the vultures of desire ever eating at his vitals. Yet someday, like Prometheus, the meaning of the name being forethinker, man will learn his lesson and realize that fire is a gift of the gods to be used to transmute the dross of passion into the gold of spiritual love. For only so can he become the master of the vultures. They can never destroy him, for what they gnaw today will be restored tomorrow. And with every pang of suffering, wisdom and understanding will increase until the great work of man's redemption shall be accomplished. Without fire, base metals can never become gold, and without desire, determined will, and strength of character, the base, inverted passions of man can never be transmuted into spiritual gold. According to the vulgar interpretation, this card is said to represent Judas, who went out and hanged himself after betraying the Christ, with the 30 pieces of silver under his arms. But when we understand that that whole story is a symbolical allegory, we will see that this card is Judas indeed, but not in a historical personage. Judas represents a certain phase of humanity, and as the card shows, he hangs by one foot or by a partial understanding for man's betrayal of the Christ. Within it's brought about often more completely by half truths and half understandings than by deliberate treachery or by utter ignorance. This tarot card also agrees with the symbology of the myth of Oedipus, who was given by his father into the hands of herdsmen with orders for him to be destroyed. The herdsmen were more moved with pity, yet not daring to disobey, they tied the child by one foot to an overhanging branch of the tree. Oedipus represents a personality which the father seeks not to destroy, but to send forth into condition far from his real home, that he may be succored and nourished by nature. While the treatment seems cruel, yet through it Oedipus learned to stand erect and become a valiant defender of the community. And later he was able to answer the riddle of the Sphinx, which was a symbol that he had passed his initiation. Later he became a king and was married to the king's daughter. His love and intuition, feminine, were joined to wisdom, masculine. However, some accounts depict a more dire result, namely that he married the queen, who was his own mother, thus bringing upon his madness. This is the other side of the story, for the personality must either conquer and have love and wisdom wedded, or else defile the great divine mother, which means to use his acquired power for evil purposes. Interesting. The 12 labors of Hercules. Quote, take an instance, the lens, for they are all legends for erotic purposes of the lives of Krishna, Hercules, Pythagoras, Buddha, Jesus, Apollonius. I'm not going to say this properly or project it right. Shitnaya. On the worldly plane, their biographies, if written by one outside the circle, would differ greatly from what we read of them in the narratives that are preserved of their mystic lives. It is not in the coming of their everyday life, then, that the great similarity is to be sought, but in their inner state. All this is connected with and built upon an astronomical basis, which serves at the same time as a foundation for the representation of the degrees and trials of initiation, descent into the kingdom of darkness and matter. or the last time to emerge therefrom as sons of righteousness. End quote. The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky. I'm trying to get a copy of that too. I have another book by her. In the hymns of Orpheus, in the scholastic of Hesiod, also in with the F's and the PH's, Porphyry, I didn't say that right. The 12 labors of Hercules are connected with the 12 signs of the zodiac. Hercules being considered as a symbol of the sun in its passage through the 12 signs. Other sources have variously considered him as a hero or as a god. Dr. Fox in the mythology of all races describes him thus, quote, Hercules is a bewildering compound of god and hero. While he may properly be called the most heroic of the Grecian gods, he cannot with equal propriety be termed the most divine of heroes, end quote. We agree with the first name authorities that the myth of Hercules represents the sun in its passage through the 12 signs of the zodiac, but we go a little deeper. We shall endeavor to show herein that the myth also symbolizes the steps of initiation through which every man must pass ere he becomes a sun initiate. The labors are those which each must perform in his zodiac or cycle of evolution, namely the transmuting of the lower or maligned influences of the 12 signs of the zodiac, that the higher and uplifting powers of each sign may lend their aid to his onward climb. Ere the soul can start out in earnest to essay the heights of spiritual mastery, he must have reached a stage of unfoldment in which he has learned to recognize the God within and has developed the heroic qualities which enable him to preserve until he has learned to rule his stars or convert all the zodiacal influences into steps up the mount of attainment. In the early stages of mastery, it is through the development of the heroic qualities of strength, courage, daring, and power that the God-man prevails. From this standpoint, let us consider 12 labors of Hercules. The myth of the life of Hercules strongly resembles in some of its salient features the Bible story of Jacob, thus giving coloring to the idea that both are myths intended to teach the same lesson and symbolizing the same divine truth. Hence, both hold the same hidden meaning. Like all sun gods, Hercules was born of the divine father, although the human husband, Amphitryon, or of his mother, Alcmene, assumed the fatherhood before the world, just as Joseph stood before the world as the father of Jesus, who nevertheless was born of the Most High God. Indeed, every child born of earthly parents who is conceived without thought of impurity and in pure love rather than lust has an immaculate but not miraculous conception. Hence it is conceived of the Holy Ghost. There are many pure virgins, even though married, of whom it may be said, the Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also the holy thing that shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God. The word immaculate simply means without strain or impurity. My co-host says hi. In the story of Hercules, we are told that Zeus deceived Hercules' mother by coming to her in the guise of her husband during his absence. The visit symbolizes spiritual realization of the divine presence and the utter withdrawal of her thoughts from the personality of her husband, her relation into the realization of which his mind had not yet risen. Thus, it is always possible for the mother to hold the higher ideal, and even to hear the announcement of the angel and ponder it in her heart, so that the Holy Ghost shall come upon her at the time of conception, even though the Father may not be able to understand or realize it or cooperate with her any more than did Joseph and Aphroditon. You guys know what I'm talking about. Hence, it could be said mystically that he was not there, not present in consciousness. For we, that which thinks and realizes, are where our consciousness is, not merely where the body happens to be, although in each case referred to upon the husband's return, there seems to have been no hesitancy in his adopting the child of his own. Like Jacob, Hercules was one of twins, his brother, like Esau, being the son of the human father. Every child that is born beings to its birth, these twins, the one, the child of the overshadowing divinity, which later in life becomes the incarnating soul, the child Jacob, of the Father in heaven, and the animal soul of the physical body and the functions, Esau, the progeny of his physical parents, for the parents furnish only the physical vehicle, body, for the soul's use. Thus, literally, as St. Paul tells us, the quote, the first man is of the earth, earthly. The second man is the Lord from heaven, end quote. This animal self is usually the firstborn because as we have explained elsewhere, until the age of 12, the child is a mere human animal, only overshadowed by the immortal soul. Yet the divine soul, once having obtained possession, is destined to rule, or as it is expressed in the story of Jacob, acquires the birthright of his brother Esau. In the same way, the story of Hercules, we find Iphiclus, the child of the human father, is superseded by Hercules. In this allegory of the sun, initiate the events of the sun in each sign of the zodiac are symbolized by 12 laborers performed by Hercules, which in the Bible narrates that they are not performed directly by Jacob, but through his 12 sons, thus being merely a variation of the same idea. Co-host finally got down because she wanted pets. I don't know if you could see, she paused me, and then she gets in my way so I can't continue reading. So I do apologize. She's an old lady. I can't blame her. She needs love too. As the 4 vital points of the zodiac are indicated by the 4 signs Taurus, the bull, Leo, lion, Scorpio, eagle, and Aquarius, the man, so the relation of Hercules to the zodiac is emphasized by his connection with the characteristic of these 4 signs. He is represented with the strongly emphasized bull, Taurus, neck and shoulders, from which he gains his strength and his ability to labor and bear heavy burdens, the power to do. He is clad in a lion's skin, Leo, from which he is fabled to have gained his great courage, the power to dare. In his cradle, when but 8 months old, he strangled 2 serpents, which his father, Amphitron, put into the beds of the twins. And I know how to say that, just doesn't come out. In order to decide which was really his son. The fact that Iphiclus bled and Hercules strangled the serpents at once convinced him. This was a prophecy of Hercules' victory over the lower serpent forces, sex, in later life when he killed the 9-headed Hydra, and when he rejected Aphrodite, sexual love, and chose Athene, wisdom. The strangling of the serpents realizes the lower aspects of Scorpio to keep silent. For only in the mystic silence can we transmute the lower creative force, Scorpio, which are the serpent by the way, and adder in the path that biteth the horse's heels, so that the rider shall fall backward into the eagle, which shall mount up at thy command and make her nest on the high. Also, the serpent is the mount silent of all beasts, yet the most deadly. The human aspect of Hercules stands for Aquarius, the God-man. He who pours forth the water of life is quickened in humanity, the Christ seed, the one who can wrest victory from defeat, who can conquer, bring forth in spite of all the evil needs, that the pouring forth of the water of life may cause to spring up, both in himself and his environment. This is the power of the man to know. Even the madness in which Hercules is depicted of slaying his children carries out the symbology, for thus must the would-be son destroy the children of his evil thoughts. And how often he is accused of madness. Quote, strive with thy thoughts unclean before they overpower thee. Use them as they will thee, for if thou sparest them and they take root and grow, know well these thoughts will overpower and kill thee, end quote. Again, Hercules is proclaimed as a champion of man by the 5 accoutrements given him by the gods. Athene, wisdom, given him a robe. Hermes, stoic wisdom or esoteric wisdom, gave him a sword, the sword of the spirit. Apollo, illumination, gave him a bow from which to shoot darts of truth and creative power. Oh no. Hephaestus, I don't think I said that right either. Divine fire, gave him a breastplate, the protecting flame of the Christ love, which we are told is a consuming fire, in which nothing evil can endure if we permit it from an aura about us. And Hercules himself cut from a mighty oak in Nemea, a great club, symbolizing the strength of manhood, wrenched from nature. And it was with these 5 weapons, representing all the 5 senses of man, that he performed his 12 labors. These labors are not performed in order in which the signs follow each other in zodiac, because each soul begins its pilgrimage in the sign ruled by the planetary hierarchy from which it's emanated. After that, it is incarnates in the sign in which its next great experience or lesson is to be learned. And this varies with each soul. Hercules being a sun god and naturally begin in the sign ruled by the sun, Leo. The first labor, and I'm gonna maybe read 2 of these and then we'll finish. Killing the Nemean lion. The first labor of Hercules was to kill the Nemean lion, Leo. The force of Leo in its lower aspects represents the raging fury of the lion. It's laying in wait and pouncing on its prey unaware. And just as it is, higher aspects are strength, courage, and love, so the lower aspects are self-indulgence, cowardice, and a weak, uncontrollable law of nature, which makes it possessor, the prey to all the raging lower passions. It was with these qualities that Hercules had to fight, for like the Nemean lion, which devastated the land, they are the seed of typhoon, and do indeed devastate the life of man and bring untold mystery to the race. This is my co-host again. Hercules tracked this lion to a cave having 2 openings, one of which he stopped up, then entered the other and choked the lion to death. The uncontrolled love nature dwells within the cave of the physical body. It has 2 avenues, openings of manifestation, the one opening outwardly, animal indulgence, and the other opening inwardly, in the mind as a desire to indulge itself, yet appear loving. The outer opening Hercules stopped up by refusing to use his powers in a merely animal way. Then he entered within the mind, opening and choke the lion by refusing to allow thoughts of self-indulgence and thoughts concerning the lower aspects of so-called love to live. We feed and give power over us to that upon which we allow our thoughts to dwell. Hence, we must choke those thoughts which we do not wish to manifest in our lives. Even after the victory, Hercules wore the lion's skin, which no weapon of man could penetrate. Even so, when he had truly conquered and balanced the heart qualities and our timid fear of giving offense or facing criticism from the world, we cover ourselves with the lion's skin of divine love and have the courage of our convictions, which no weapon, even the most dreaded one of the tongue, or misunderstanding, disapproval, or impurity can penetrate. We then have the courage of the lion, and we dare to wear his skin. For this victory builds into our character a quality which is recognized by the world, even as and was the lion's skin worn by Hercules. The second labor, Scorpio, killing the Hydra. Quite naturally, when Hercules had killed the lion, conquered the heart, he found his next labor to be the necessity of fighting the lower forces expressed by Scorpio, the normal sex passions degraded by lust. These forces are fittingly symbolized as a monstrous Hydra with 9 heads, the middle one being immortal, which dwelt in the swamps of Lurn. The 9 heads represent the power of the 9 digits, or the cycle through which the monster of perverted sex force crawls and pollutes mankind. Thus who essay to top my gosh. Those who essay to lop off any one of those heads will find, like Hercules, that 2 heads grow in the place of each one cut off. For the more we turn our thoughts towards sex, even for the purpose of conquering it or cutting off its heads, the more it grows. The one immortal head in the center, however, would be the 5th head, or number 5, man, representing the true man who holds within his higher consciousness the knowledge of truth, sacredness, and inherent purity of the sex functions. This is a great cosmic lesson for which man incarnated in the separate sexes of this world period to learn. The essential immortal head is divine love, which can never be killed out. This immortal head Hercules cut off and placed beneath a stone. Although its pure and immortal aspect cannot be killed, yet often we must bury it for a time under the stone on which we are striving to build our new life. That is, love must be controlled and not permitted to interfere with the great task which we have undertaken. Killing the Hydra of lust, it then becomes the foundation stone of our spiritual life. The 8 mortal heads of misunderstanding, profanation, pollution, self-indulgence. Oh no. I'm not even attempting this word, it's not coming out. Phallicism, debauchery, and perversion can and must be lopped off and seared with divine fire so they can never grow again. While the immortal head must be transmuted into creative power, it will be noted that Hercules entered upon this labor in the full vigor of his manly strength and not as a hero who strived to conquer by fasting, depleting his body, and emasculating his powers. He who hopes to obtain to the sun initiation must, like Hercules, cut off and sear with the divine fire the 8 mortal heads of the terrible Hydra, which dwells in the springs and swamps of our life and trails its slimy length over all man's fairest creations. Number 8 being the 8 of evolution and Scorpio being the 8th sign emphasizes the great step in evolution that the lopping off of these 8 heads will bring about. It will be observed that while Hercules was able to lop them off one by one with the aid of his club, which we have said was manly strength, yet only when he used the sacred fire and seared their roots could he prevent them from growing and multiplying. The most cause glance over life as we see it shows us that for every one of these 8 heads or degraded expressions of this Hydra, which we try to cut off instead of transmuting and allowing the force of the 8 to be indrawn into the 9th or immortal head to grow in its stead, and the monster waxes stronger and more deadly. Only the earnest aspirant for the sun's initiation, who depends not upon manly strength, his club, alone, but upon the strength of the divine flame, the fiery missiles used by Hercules, can also transmute this force, that the immortal head shall swallow up the mortal heads, even as 9 swallows 8 in initiation. Number 9 transforms the experience of evolution, number 8 into wisdom. It is the perversion of this force which brings to man most of his unhappy experiences of suffering, disease, and death. Hence, it has become almost a truism with many that love on earth cannot exist without sorrow. It can, however, when its 8 mortal heads are destroyed, for ordinarily earthly love is but a fitful shadow of the divine love, which is the heritage of every incarnating soul. This shadow can never take definite form on earth without being separated into its 2 opposite poles, the twain who are made one, since this is a world of duality. Hence, there is no man or woman who is not a separate part, which must ultimately find its complementary part, and only divine love can ever reunite the fragments and fuse them into one. Thus, every incarnated being must, in the long journey away from his father's house, feel more or less of a homesick loneliness, for that which is so filled his being when in the father's home has now apparently been lost. Divine love finds it hard to breathe the air of earth, for joy is an essential part of life. As the soul clothes itself again and again in garments of flesh, it is ever urged on by great loneliness to seek for its complementary mate. But alas, this is like seeking for the living among the dead, until the soul awakens to the grand truth that it is immortal. And since immortality embraces completeness, the awakening brings the realization that the separation is but temporary. Therefore, in the one immortal head, we will find that all that is needed to make us complete. But as long as we seek for love and satisfaction in any one or all of the 8 mortal heads of sex, we are doomed to sorrow and disappointment. We seek again and again, and opportunity after opportunity is granted us, yet the memory of our true soul love always haunts us, even though obscured, pushed back, and not permitted to enter our consciousness. But if we will be still and wait instead of running to and fro, seeking in God's good time, we will find it. For nothing can fully obliterate the soul memory or kill the immortal head. It may be hidden under a stone for a time, but it surely come forth. Therefore, let us, sorry guys, my allergies are outrageous right now. Let us rest in the assurance that what God hath joined, nothing can be asunder, and that those whom God joined in the beginning of time were perfect parts of a whole, and not misfits, and must ultimately be united. So often we are like children picking up mussel shells on the seashore and trying to fit together the 2 pieces which are but half shells. Only when we find 2 parts still holding to each other can we make them fit. For these are the ones which God have joined together, and no other half shell in all the ocean will fit so as to make a home for a living creature. We, like the little mussel shells, have been so tossed by the sea of life that the 2 parts of our outer expression are often torn apart and widely separated, and the living creature, which needs both halves of the shell for its protection, home, and true life, is seemingly lost. Let us compare this creature to the soul, which needs its dual parts to make it one and give it protection and a true home in the sea of humanity. The idea that one physical body could in itself manifest perfect duality is reversing the law. It is the twain who must be made one, not one twain. The two separated manifestations of the soul, which are one in heaven, must experience their evolution on earth, subject to the law of earth life duality, yet must again become one. But never can this happen physically, since the physical body, being earthly, is ever subject to the law of pairs of opposites, the law governing all physical manifestations. But it must be done mentally, psychically, and spiritually. In each world in which it manifests, the soul must clothe itself in a body appropriate to that world. In the world of separation, duality, it separated bodies, but in the spiritual world of oneness, unity, both manifestations, masculine and feminine, can enter into the one spiritual body or arc, from which both originally descended into the separate physical manifestation. This must be accomplished while all that is mortal is still like the two sides of a mussel shell, each still complementary to the other, and each needed to hold fast within the living organism, the higher self. Therefore, we are mortals, can take a lesson from the mussel. We must use our higher intelligence to recognize the great truth, namely that only our own can bring us completion, victory, and joy, and we must refuse even to try match our half shell with the half that does not belong to us. Else the united shells will always be empty, for no living creature can dwell therein. So I'm going to leave it there. There's two more labors, and there's some other sections before it closes itself out. So I'm going to leave it at the labor 2. And next time we'll read labor 3. That, and also I need to take something for my allergies. It was very high pollen here today. I cleaned my car and it was like green and yellow. Yeah. I have drops. Although these are not the actual ones. I have organic drops that deal with the allergies. So I'll be sucking on that in a little bit. Reach out to me if you're interested in those. I will email you more information. Those are really amazing drops. They're all organic. That one in particular I just showed you deals with the tummy. I have for the hair, for wellness, for pain, for inflammation. I have a lot of different types of drops, and they're really delicious, and they're barely any calories, if any at all. They're kosher and halal certified. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll get you hooked up. But that was for the Key of Destiny. I'm in love with this authors, and also just to put it out there, again, it's talking, and this is now how many books now? It's talking about duality, and I'm kind of purposely going through duality because I think a lot of us need to understand that aspect of ourselves. And then again, with the pendulum swinging, we have the polarities and then we have the rhythm. You have to come into balance with both those aspects, both those poles. And here's another example of that. Because spirit syncs, because this is collectively what a lot of people need to like start coming in alignment with. A lot of people do not understand when I do oracle cards, I'm feeding off of what spirit thinks collectively we all need. And depending on where you find yourself it's giving you advice to work on your inner self. Here's some aspects to look out for. Here's what you might be wanting to tune into. And it's all what resonates with you. And a lot of it might not resonate with you, but there might be a message within one of those cards that I pull that help. I don't think none of them don't help. It has really good advice. So look out. I'm going to be doing more readings hopefully tomorrow. We'll see what happens with the weather and how I'm feeling. But again, please don't forget to hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel. It helps me get this word out, and share. Also, if you have it within you to give me a love donation, if you have gotten anything from any of my readings, please consider helping me out. If you got a dot, a mind, an epiphany, a light bulb went off, anything, any kind of help helps me continue to do this and helps me get the hell out of communism, because I'm stuck here. And until I get out of here, it's going to be a nightmare. So hope you consider it. It's okay if you don't. Just like the video. And I'll see you on the next one, guys. Bye.